Now for the last session of the day on EMA communication and reporting. So we will start with Kaisa Emonen she will update us about the introduction to the revamp. Bella, I like these words. The revamp of the Human Medicine Highlights newsletter project and the results of the stakeholder survey. Kaisa?
Thank you very much, Rosa, and good afternoon to everyone. We're almost at the end of the day, and you just have to put up with two small topics. But we were hoping that communications at the end of the day might be something to catch your attention for a few moments. So bear with me, and this is actually quite important because earlier we heard about surveys and what happens with the surveys, and they should be made for a purpose. Well, this is a survey made for a purpose, and I hope we'll get some more input from you also. So I'm going to go through my slides fairly rapidly, and you will see them for the details later. But if there's any question, just ask. Am I okay with this? Yes. So, I mean, I don't think I need to go through with you what is the Human Medicines Highlights newsletter because you're all more than familiar with it, I'm sure, and I'm hoping that you all read it. So, basically, so I'm going to skip this one, but what we're going to do this year is we're trying to improve it. So we're going to renew this newsletter to make it better serve your information needs. Obviously, the newsletter is what it is. You've seen that the way it looks is maybe not optimal. It may not be so easy to find information, but also we thought that this newsletter is really it's the only newsletter targeted to patients, consumers, and also healthcare professionals. And I don't know if most people who read it are patients and consumers and healthcare professionals. We get the idea that maybe not. So what we have a great opportunity here because in-house the EMA is going to transition all the newsletters to a new tool. It's a much nicer tool and it will allow us an opportunity to improve the look of the newsletter, but also to structure the information better. And we want to take this general opportunity to improve the content of it and just kind of generally make it a much better, much more useful newsletter. As a first step, we wanted to know how is it with the current newsletter? What does the readership like and dislike about it? So we did a survey, obviously, because that's what one does. The survey ran in May and June, and we sent it to all eligible organizations and also everyone who subscribed to the newsletter through the database. So that's quite a lot of individual subscribers. We received 51 responses, and I think that's not too bad, actually. If you look at, you can see here in the graph that we had about 2/3 of the respondents who were either individual patients and consumers or representative of patient-consumer organizations, and then 1/3 of healthcare professionals and healthcare professional organizations. And if we look at the sort of the total response rate may seem low, but then among eligible organizations, if we assume that everyone identified themselves correctly, we can maybe come to a 30% response rate. So that wouldn't be too bad. And in any case, the responses are quite interesting. So first of all, just to outline a little bit who responded, I think that the main point here is I'm not going to look at the details of all these areas of interest because people were given multiple options and most respondents actually ticked more than one disease area. So we can just basically conclude that most people are interested in more than one area, and even if they are not identifying themselves as umbrella organizations per se. We asked how often people who receive the newsletter actually read it, and here again it's quite, I would say, quite positive. Most people read it every month or often. There are some people who don't read it very often, and this is a few selected comments. These are not all the comments, but one theme that emerges, I can already tell you now, is that people receive a lot of communications, and some people just skim it and go directly to the information that interests them specifically. But overall, people think it's a resource that they do use, and that they think it's a good summary of what happens at the European level. The second question we asked is whether people actually disseminate the newsletter, for example, through their own communication channels. And here about 40% said yes. And some people said no. Many people said no. But the comments basically here on this question indicate that people disseminate often parts of it, the ones they think are relevant, or they things they can extract. But also there's an indication that people use the information in different ways, even if they don't directly disseminate it. So one respondent says that that they don't share the newsletter, but they do use it, and they highlight EMA news on their website in another way. So how useful do they then find the newsletter? We asked this actually in terms of its content, and you can see that the majority find it very useful or mostly useful. We only asked here comments from those people who said either that they were neutral about it or did not find it useful. So predictably, okay, some people feel that not everything is relevant to them. There is a lot of information in the newsletter. Some people think it's very long. One commented that it's not patient-friendly, or that there is no information about their specific area of interest. So those were the main reasons cited for not finding it useful. Then we asked this question about each section of the newsletter as it is currently. And I'm not going to go into detail here so much, but basically you can see here that where there's a lot of blue, it means that the respondent said it's mostly or very useful. These are the areas that were most frequently mentioned as being very useful. And these are the medicines recommendations per disease area. That's a lot of the core content of the newsletter. Also the guidelines section and the section on medicines under additional monitoring, and the section on public health emergencies of international concern, which currently has been about COVID-19, but also monkeypox, and it could be something else in future. Then there are other areas that maybe have less of a dedicated readership, but still the majority still finds them mostly useful. The scientific committee in working party activities, the scientific committee agendas, minutes and highlights, monthly statistics and events, and then there's the other publications. And here maybe, people will try to find the information that they're particularly interested in and ignore the rest, potentially. Some of the comments received were, for example, that the newsletter is very broad, while the reader's interest may be very small or very particular, and that information can be sometimes useful and sometimes not, so it's not always clear-cut. One commented, and I think that I can understand this, that it's sometimes difficult to understand and focus on the information they need, so to find it inside the newsletter. But people also said that it's a go-to resource for them, so that's really nice to hear. And one interesting comment received here is that it seems to mainly report on work done rather than what's coming up, and they wished for more information on activities that are either currently ongoing or coming up in the near future, so people can be informed and prepare in advance. Then we asked by the presentation of content, because we wanted to know if the current way things are presented by disease area is what people want to see. And actually, yes, the respondents mostly felt that this was the best way to present it, so we should keep it as it is. I think that there are some comments indicated that whilst this is a good way of presenting content, on some topics they would maybe prefer to find it in a different way. Some themes like biosimilars or shortages could be something that could be highlighted in a different way rather than by disease area. And one said, and I have no idea how technically feasible it is, that it could be possible to select a presentation according to how you want it. I'm not sure we can do that, but it's a very interesting comment nevertheless. We asked about the topics and whether people wanted to add anything new compared to what there is now. And most respondents, 71 is a big majority, said no. However, a few suggestions were made for additional topics. And here I should say that shortages, and I will try to be quick. I'm sorry, I'm going a bit over time. Shortages were mentioned a few times, so that's definitely a theme that interests people. And a few comments also mentioned things relating to pharmacovigilance, for example, medicine side effects, and also reasons why decisions are taken. So reasons why an authorization is withdrawn, who takes decisions. And some comments indicated that there is not so much knowledge, or that we could add additional content on how EMA involves patients and consumers. Some people questioned how are patients involved in your activities and so on, or so it's not maybe as visible as it could be. So then we also asked about use of other EMA information resources, and I'll just show this to you quickly. Basically, people do use the website quite often. They use the CHMP highlights, the PRAC highlights, EMA news, homepage news, events, and what's new page. When it comes to social media, it's a bit more split. Some people use it quite a lot and others don't use it. One person commented that they don't use any social media at all. So clearly these are complementary, and we can improve the social media usage, but also remember that a lot of people find the website very useful. About the design and the timing, I have to say personally, I was surprised at the level of satisfaction with the design of the newsletter as it currently is, but it was fairly positive, although a third said they would like to improve one or the other aspect of it. And as far as the timing goes, most people prefer to keep it monthly as it is now. A few people said less frequently, but most people are happy with monthly. A few comments just selected here, and please remember here that this is really an initial analysis of the survey that just closed last week. So I mentioned the future activities and topics of wider interest. Many said that there are topics in some sections, like the other publications, that are very interesting, but they are not visible, so they may not be noticed. And I think this is something we will certainly be able to address with the new design. They also said it could have a theme per month. We could have an editorial on a topic or something EMA is doing, which would make it more attention-grabbing, more attractive. However, we should not make it too much wordier and too much longer, that it should still kind of be precise and keep the content straight to the point. Some explanations to add to what the sections are about. More infographics and more visuals. This was also a recurring comment, and I think it's a very, very good one. Group the content so it's easier to see what's where and find what you need. Yeah, and I mean, these comments may seem slightly negative, but I think that's only because they are improvement suggestions, and you know, people were still also quite happy with this resource. Did I have something more? Yeah, so what we've taken from this as a very initial reflection is that it does confirm that the newsletter is useful. We have to have this newsletter. We can improve it though, and we can make it work better for you as a target audience. Some aspects we already know will be improved when we have the new design. So the grouping of the content, for example, the visual look of it. We will add intros, and we will have ways of making the newsletter more navigable. Then there were requests for these general themes, which I think is also very good for us to know, and indication that we should have more general information about patient involvement, but why not also healthcare professionals' involvement. So I would like to ask you if there's anything surprising in these results. I'm going here a bit after what Chris said earlier. Since we don't have a lot of time to discuss now, I would like to also tell you that as a next step, we'd like to do a small number of interviews to kind of get a bit more nuanced picture and get a bit more detailed information from readers. So whether or not you answered the survey, if you would be interested in participating in an interview, please let us know either now or by email afterwards. I'd like to do the interviews before and after, probably after the summer break, but by the early autumn, then we will get also a bit more concrete suggestions on what to improve. And of course, once we have the new design, we will user test it. So thanks for your input so far, and really looking forward to your suggestions. Thank you.